Welcome to today's show, Dr. Carole's Couch. I'm your psychiatrist host, Dr. Carole Lieberman. Well, today's show couldn't be any better timed. It's called Do They Really Want Epstein Investigated or Just Trump Implicated? People are having fits of hysteria, clamoring for the Epstein Files to be released. And as of today, actually, they're that much further towards getting their way. Um, the idea is people it's really sad, in my opinion. It'll be interesting to hear what my guest, who really knows what's going on, Corinne Cliford, she is on the ground in Washington, D.C. Let me just tell you who she is. She's an independent journalist based in D.C. and a prominent member of the White House press corps. She's a spokesperson for SAT123.com, which she'll explain what that is, a leading provider of emergency communication tools. She's originally from Pacific Palisades. Oh, that's why you were so involved with the Palisades fire. Okay. Tragically destroyed by wildfire in January 2025. Yes. Ms. Clifford brings a personal perspective to her coverage of emergencies and national crises. She reports on a wide range of federal new topics, covering the political spectrum from MAHA to MAGA, MAGA. From it's not MAHA, it's right.
It's
It's
MAHA and MAGA.
Yeah, that's rather confusing, but okay. Known for her fearless on-the-ground reporting, Ms. Clifford has covered major national disasters, including the LA fires, Hurricane Helene from North Carolina, and many others. Now, um, I'm very interested to hear what you have to say. I mean, we can talk about these other things too, but I'm really interested in what you have to say about the Epstein files. I'll tell you, I recently, I think a few days ago or yesterday, I don't know, I did a tweet. Epstein, enough already. I am sick of Epstein in terms of this sick, it's kind of a perverted clamoring for all this sexy stuff that they hope will be in there. When really it's all about just trying to get Trump in trouble, which I don't think is going to happen. But so it's there's something sort of perverted. And you tell me if that's what you've been seeing in Washington. Tell us about what happened today and what you've been seeing, whether how perverted the people who voted for the disclosure look.
Well, it went through the House of Representatives, and so I've interviewed Congressman Massey direct about a month ago, and he said very clearly to me that this is not about President Trump and that he has zero proof that President Trump did anything with anyone underage. It's not about President Trump. It's about all the other people that will potentially be implicated. And the public wants to know the truth, which I understand. Now, from my perspective, I'm sick of the whole Epstein file situation because I feel like the files, the real files, are destroyed. It's been far too long. There's been too many agencies, especially under the Biden regime, that could have changed names, that could have disappeared important files. And the bottom line is that the women who are protesting in Washington, D.C., I've interviewed many of them. I've done so many Epstein interviews, so many protests. I've covered it all. Personally, I love to talk to you, Dr. Carole, because you are a psychiatrist. And I think it's important to understand that I have suffered very serious sexual abuse myself in
Ah,
Beverly Hills. So I'm very caring and I
huh.
really care about this topic. But President Trump should no longer be implicated in this because President Trump is the reason that Jeffrey Epstein was arrested in the beginning in Palm Beach County, Florida, which is where I am right now, which is where I'm doing my final investigations about the Epstein files.
Ah,
Because since 1999, in Los Angeles, in New York City, in Palm Beach, victims and their family members and their brothers and sisters, boyfriends, were trying to get Jeffrey Epstein arrested and Ghislaine Maxwell. I always say her name wrong, and they couldn't. No one could get Epstein arrested until President Trump put his foot down in Palm Beach County and made sure that the sheriff here started the investigation, and then the FBI and everyone got involved. And then eventually it went to New York City where Epstein really got in trouble. But the bottom line is that I believe the real Epstein files have been destroyed now. And I don't think we're ever going to get to the truth. And the main witness of Virginia, I think that she was disappeared. I think she was murdered. And prior to being murdered, she'd made millions of dollars in settlements. So thank God her children are taken care of. But I don't think we're ever going to really get the truth about what really happened, because Jeffrey Epstein not only had Palm Beach, he had New Mexico, he had Colorado, he had Los Angeles, he had New York. He was all across America. I
Yeah.
want to know the truth about what really happened in New Mexico, because that's the most chilling information. So there's layer upon layer upon layer of
Yeah.
information that we're never going to get to, because I think the real truth has been destroyed.
That's a very good point. I agree with you because, I mean, and the thing is, we would never know from what they, assuming they're going to reveal what they have, we would never know whether that was the real, information, whether it was correct, whether it had been changed or whether it had been lost, So, I mean, because especially since the one person we know, really had a lot to do with what Jeffrey Epstein was doing was Clinton. So perhaps Biden, well, and Obama, I think I would, to tell you the truth, I would love for it. The one reason I would love for it to be revealed everything, but again, without the things that the Biden Obama White House took out, I would love Obama to be revealed as having done some nasty stuff because I think there has been some implication of him, but certainly Clinton, of all names, like if you went on the street and you asked people, who do you think? What politician or who do you think would be the most involved with Jeffrey Epstein? The average person would probably say Clinton because they've seen the picture, the painting of Clinton in the dress and his name is on the flight logs and all of that. So, I mean, I would just want to clear something up though. I want to make it clear that I don't think that Trump had anything to do with anything. Yes, he knew Jeffrey Epstein. Yes, there are pictures of him and Melania and Jeffrey Epstein and some woman or women at parties. But Trump was the one who threw Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago because he was pilching Virginia Giuffre and others because Ghislaine Maxwell was doing that. Also, Ghislaine Maxwell and Virginia had said that they never saw Trump doing anything wrong, nothing sexual. So I don't expect there to be anything in there about Trump that really implicates him in a bad way. But I think that other people think that there will be, or they will try to make the
Well,
most out
I
of.
want to know the truth. Yeah. Well, if there was something really bad, they would have brought it into this last election round. I mean, if there was something really damaging to
Yes,
President Trump, he would
yes,
not currently be our president,
that's
and they would
right.
have brought it in. So it's nothing to do with Trump. I actually think it's more like Les Wexner and, of course, Clinton and all these other super wealthy men. And I think that the truth needs to come out about them. But what are we really going to do? You're a psychiatrist. What do you really do at the end of the day? There's so much money involved in this,
Yeah,
Dr. Lieberman. And this is what I'm concerned about. Like, when you have this kind of abuse in your life, you can sue. A lot of these women have made money in their lawsuits. And I'm worried that potentially, that's their motivation, is to get more and more money. And then the lawyers get more and more money. I know members of Congress want the truth to come out, but the bottom line is there's a lot of money involved and there's a lot of damages. And a lot of these women have gotten money for their damages, which I'm a survivor of sexual abuse. It's not enough. Therapy doesn't even help you when you're a survivor of sexual abuse. The only thing that helps you is to rebuild your life, like I'm doing, being really full of integrity, being honest, standing up for what you believe in, having a really beautiful family, a good love life, you know. But you can make a lot of money in damages. And I think that that's a lot of people's their secret desire is to be able to sue and make money. And today, the protests in Washington, D.C. were just like the protests last month, where, survivors speak, and I care about them. But the bottom line is we already know about Prince Andrew. Who else is there? I want to know the real names, and I want to know what really happened in New Mexico. What Jeffrey Epstein did in New Mexico, no one ever talks about. And he never got arrested in New Mexico. I think from my research, he was trying to create a master race in New Mexico and take the eggs from the girls that he was having these sexual flings with and use them potentially to create a master race. I think there's a deeper, darker thing going on here that,
That's very
yes,
interesting. Where did you, what makes you think that?
because he was asking the girls that I've interviewed for their eggs. And the thing, too, I want people to know, and I know this is a bad thing to say, but I try to be uncensored. The women who were involved with Jeffrey Epstein were paid very well. They made a lot of money, and they did it for the money, which doesn't make their damages any worse. But if you and I go out there and you and I, do things for money, or we, have sex for money, or we are married to men for money, not many people are going to really feel that bad for us. So there was a lot of money involved in this.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's still damaging and painful, but I've never received any financial compensation for all the sexual abuse that I experienced from my own family members. So the bottom line is that the Epstein list, the victims have received a lot of money, and you're a therapist, doesn't really help, but the lawyers do care about that. So they're pushing and pushing and pushing.
Yes,
This
yes.
really has nothing to do with President Trump anymore. It really has to do with national security of billionaires. And potentially, what if Epstein was trying to create a master race in New Mexico? Those are the questions I want answered.
Well, we're going to talk more about those questions and possible answers in the next segment because we have to take a break. So we'll stop here so you can start fresh. I had never heard of the master race theory, so we'll start with that. And yes, I want to talk about the victims. I mean, of course, I'm very sorry about your sexual abuse. I'm sorry about anybody, sexual abuse is horrible. It is very hard to get over, or to, you don't really get over it, but to put your life back after it. Of course, it does help if you get a lot of money. But
Yeah.
yes, all of these things. So we'll be right back. And again, my guest is Corinne Clifford, and we great stuff, Corinne. So stay tuned. Welcome back to Dr. Carol's Couch. I'm your psychiatrist host, Dr. Carole Lieberman. Today's show is called Do They Really Want Epstein Investigated or Just Trump Implicated? And you've heard already, I've been saying I think they're beating a dead horse. Corinne Clifford, my guest, who is an independent journalist based in Washington, D.C., and a prominent member of the White House press corps, has her ear to the ground. She's interviewed a lot of people involved with this story, and she's been bringing up a bunch of interesting things that I really never heard about the master race theory. So tell us more about that. You said you interviewed one of the victims who said,
No, I literally just did it 2 seconds ago, and then you came back, and I was like,
Yeah, they said in New Mexico there could be
I'm hearing
some
hearing some
very,
voice over.
okay.
I don't know what that voice is. Jordan?
Oh, sorry. In New Mexico, there could be some very serious situations happening that no one's talking about.
Okay, well, what did this victim tell you? They were asking. Now, you said that he had been asking for her eggs and for other victims' eggs, but I was thought that that was so that he and Ghislaine could have a baby. Do you know about that?
No. And that's what they say, right? And maybe they would say that that was their baby. Maybe they would say that that was their baby, but why would they need the eggs from young girls? They wouldn't need that. They would use her eggs, right? Or
Well,
the
I mean,
bottom line,
she was getting older. I'm not sure how old she was at the end, but I think they were probably thinking they needed younger eggs.
I don't think so. My research, and they would probably have said that it was their children, but my research, and I met his entourage in Aspen, Colorado, because he had an estate in Colorado, he had an estate in New Mexico. So I was kind of introduced, to his entourage, but his pilots are the ones who told me, do not ever come to this island because you do not want to get involved with what's going on there. So the pilots know everything. So the bottom line is that in New Mexico, I'm being told that he was trying to harvest eggs and create a master race, potentially of Ashkenazi Jewish. I think Jeffrey Epstein was some type of international spy, potentially Mossad. These are questions that we should have answered. These are questions that should be more about, Jeffrey himself. I don't care about it relating to President Trump. President Trump was such an incredibly wealthy man. He never had a problem finding women to have children for him. He never had a problem finding dates. My girlfriend Allison Giannini dated President Trump right after Marla Maples. He
Uh-huh.
was a total gentleman. He took care of everything. President Trump really should not be the focus here. I think the focus is what was Jeffrey Epstein really doing in New Mexico? And what if he was experimenting with the different alien races that were happening in New Mexico? I think that there's a lot happening in New Mexico. All roads end up, when I do research about very high level people, they always have something going on in New Mexico. So it makes me think, what is
That's
going
interesting.
on in New Mexico? Because you can buy off the authorities there. They're very Democrat there. And you can buy off the authorities because we've got, the aliens landing in New Mexico. We've got Jeffrey Epstein. Why would he be in New Mexico? You know,
Well,
my God.
New Mexico, just to play devil's advocate. New
Okay.
Mexico is a very pretty place. But yes, I never put that together about um uh fifth land 51, what do they call that? 50 unit 51,
Area
area
51 in New
51,
Mexico.
area 51, right. Um Now it'd be kind of, I mean, now let's make it clear. You're not saying, you said that he might be wanting to make a master race of Ashkenazi Jews. You're not saying that the Ashkenazi Jews are the aliens, just to clarify that.
No, no, I'm not saying that at all.
Okay, we have to
I'm
be
saying
very,
that I think
we have to
I
be
think
very
Jeffrey
careful.
Epstein, I think
Okay.
that he wanted to make a master race with himself and these different women, and he wanted to create different types of children with higher education, different looks, blonde, brunette, because I don't think that he felt like he was attractive, and I don't think he felt like Ms. Maxwell was very attractive. So I think he wanted to use these younger women and create some type of crazy master race, potentially using the genes that have been found in Area 51, because that information is coming out in congressional hearings. And I've interviewed congressmen who are in charge of these hearings, and it's really shocking information that they've asked me not to talk about too much. But I am telling you that when I get into these deep investigations about what's really going on, New Mexico is where they allowed many migrants in. New Mexico is where a lot of children have been trafficked and we can never find them again. New Mexico is always underestimated. So the bottom line is that when I go into the trafficking of children, when I go into the aliens, when I go into Jeffrey Epstein, when I go into all these topics, it always relates back to New Mexico because I'm finding out you can really pay cash to the officials there to get what you want done. It's very corrupt. It's a border town. There's cartels. There's a lot of corrupt sheriffs there. I've interviewed sheriffs. I've interviewed so many people. I've interviewed hundreds of people about the New Mexico thing. So I'm very interested in any information, and I'm going to
Uh-huh.
ask Congressman Massey. I'm going to ask everybody, what do you know about New Mexico? Because Los Angeles, the truth is never going to come out. What happened in Los Angeles, they're never going to expose it. Gloria Allred was trying to have Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell arrested since 1998, 1999. They did nothing in Los Angeles. Why is that? They almost did nothing in Palm Beach County, but President Trump put his foot down when he banned Jeffrey Epstein from Mar-a-Lago, which I was just at yesterday. And in New York City, they finally prosecuted Jeffrey Epstein because President Trump forced them to do it. And finally, they had a mayor who cared about that. But what I'm telling you is that President Trump's first term, he cared about prosecuting Jeffrey Epstein. Why didn't these files come out the first term?
Well,
Why didn't they come
yes,
out during the Biden era?
okay. But like, why? What happened? Here's a good question. What happened? Trump originally, when he came into this term, besides whatever happened in the first term, um, he said that he wanted to release Jeffrey Epstein's files. And Pam Bondi made this big show of the files on her desk and giving them to influencers, which I must say I do not agree with. If anybody gets the files, it should not be influencers. I mean, excuse me. But anyway, and then it died. Like then nothing happened, and there really wasn't much in those files that they got. So what happened with that?
I mean, I do think it was embarrassing the way that President Trump has been given really bad guidance and advice. I do emergency PR for a lot of people, and I need to do it for President Trump at this point because he's gotten really bad guidance. You don't give these files to influencers. That was just bad advice. Trump doesn't even know who these influencers are. He didn't
Yes.
do it. His staff did it. And what you need to know is that was early on in his second term, and a
Yes.
lot of the people that he needed to fire and hire were not hired and they weren't fired because every time President Trump tries to fire someone, a judge tries to stop him or ridiculous people protest. There's a lot of people inside these three-letter agencies, including the HHS and the FBI and the CIA
Yeah.
currently, who
Yes.
hate President Trump for their own reasons because they have something to hide and they don't want to be fired. So the bottom line is that it wasn't President Trump's fault. And then he got bad guidance. He should have released it properly in a press conference in the White House. And then people like me, we could have covered it properly. He got bad guidance. But finally, he's getting guidance. And I really think that he's on the right side of history now. He told Congress to release them, and he's going to stand up and tell the truth now. I also think people need to understand that President Trump plays the art of the game. And so if he knew top secret information, he could use that information to control the bad players. And he
Yes.
could use that information to control people like Lindsey Graham, people like Clinton, which would have helped Trump in his presidency. But we, the people, the public wants these files released. So they're getting released. Let's see what happens. I mean, I'm going to read as many as I can, but it's not that interesting to me anymore. Right now, we have so many other problems. And because I am a
Yes.
survivor of very serious sexual abuse, the only thing that really helps you is to rebuild your life, to have a little bit of money, to rebuild your family life, to rebuild your life, to focus on your career, to really delve into the heartache that you went through. These girls, once again, were paid. I was never paid when I was sexually abused. These girls were paid and they have
Yes.
to take responsibility for that. They chose to get paid, and that puts them lower on the totem pole for the FBI and the police agencies. Because listen to this, when they expose the prostitution rings, then that puts more and more people in danger. So the real situation is that they were lower on the priority poll in Los Angeles, in Palm Beach, in New York, and in New Mexico because these women were getting paid. And so that does put them a little lower. And
Well,
so
yes. I really like when Ghislaine Maxwell's trial was on, um, first of all, I think she got a really bad deal because there was a juror, as I'm sure you know, who came out afterwards and he said that he was telling all the jurors, I don't know if he was the foreman, but he was very outspoken in the jury room. And he told the jurors, oh, yes, you can forget things once you've been sexually abused. It doesn't matter that these girls didn't remember like important things. He said that he was sexually abused and that he didn't remember some important things too. So I think that he should never have been allowed on the jury. He lied on his jury questionnaire, and I don't think that she would have been convicted if that man hadn't been on the jury. But so I've been when that happened, I was kind of speaking up for Ghislaine because not to say she has no responsibility, but um, these women weren't like nobody they, he didn't put them lock them up in his basement. They kept coming back and they were making money when they were coming back. If it was so horrible, then they shouldn't have kept coming back.
Exactly. And honestly, I think Maxwell, it was underage children and she did get involved. She's bisexual. And I think that she should be in prison forever. But I don't care if she's in a security prison. That doesn't make a difference to me. But I don't think she should ever get out of prison because what she did
Uh-huh.
is disgusting. And I don't want that to be the standard for behavior. I grew
Yes.
up in Los Angeles where the Playboy scene was really big. And a lot of girls in that scene got abused. It's very serious when you get abused. And so I don't think she should ever get out of prison or jail. That shouldn't happen. And I'm glad she's in prison, obviously. I'm not sure if, Jeffrey Epstein will ever, the truth about if he was murdered or not in the prison will ever come out. I think he was murdered in the prison. But the bottom line is that I think that he was working with the richest men in the world. And so we should expose who those men are, but the victims themselves haven't done it because guess what? They make business deals on the side with their lawyers where they get a settlement to not say these men's names. And so, once again, it's really not President Trump's fault that it's taken so long for all of this to come forward because the victims make business deals with their lawyers for financial reasons. You know that.
Yes. Yes.
So, Maxwell should be in prison, but this is a business deal. People were making money. And yes, the underage children is unacceptable. I think the age of consent should be 21. But the
Mm.
bottom line is that it was a business deal for these people and it was a bad business deal. But President Trump shouldn't be dragged into this
Yes.
anymore.
Yes. Yes. I agree with you. As far as Ghislaine, I'm not saying she shouldn't be in jail for some period of time. But, the reason why she did what she did, and again, not excusing her for underage girls, but the reason why she did it is because she was so madly in love with Jeffrey Epstein, and she would do anything and was doing anything to keep him. I mean, I think she was afraid that if she stopped getting these girls to come, if she stopped being very useful to him in this way, that he would just, dump her. Because, yeah, I agree that she probably thought she was a little old. Well, clearly, she was a little old for him if he was asking for these younger girls. And just in general, that, I mean, I think had a good friendly relationship, but I think she knew that he wasn't super attracted to her and madly in love with her like she was with him. Again, not to excuse what she did, but I think that that's why she did it.
But I think it's really important to understand when I said I'm from Beverly Hills and Playboy, Hugh Hefner was doing
Right.
pretty much the same stuff and getting all the girls to
Yes.
be bisexual and paying them money and trying to drag them in and say, I'll make you famous. Holly Madison is really exposing that now. And Holly Madison is really traumatized. And those girls in Playboy are traumatized. Even Kendra Wilkinson, all these girls are traumatized, but they did it for the money. And so that's
Yes.
why,
Yes.
it's less critical to me, but now potentially we get to know who the billionaires were. We already know it's Lex Wexner. We already know it's the Victoria's Secret Gap founder. I want to know the truth about that. And so I'm interested, but I want to
Yes.
drag this once again away from President
Yes.
Trump.
Yes.
President Trump just didn't want to get into this mess. He's got so many. He has the leader right
Yes.
now at the White House. He's got the leader of
Yes.
Saudi Arabia
Yes.
at the White House. He's got major,
And
major
this is happening in
peace
Congress. It's
negotiations.
like so
Yeah,
embarrassing, right?
yeah,
To have
he
this
has to
happening in
do.
Congress. Well, the
Right. Well,
leader
we've
is
got the leader of Saudi Arabia at the White House, and then we've got the negotiations between a huge war between Ukraine and Russia that he's got to settle. And then, of course, in Saudi Arabia, they're abusing little girls. In these Arab countries, especially
yes,
in the country
yes.
of Iran,
Yeah,
they're
well, they don't,
abusing these little
yes, but they
girls.
don't think it's abuse because Mohammed was having sex with a 6-year-old girl. So, it's not abuse to them. He waited until she was 9 to marry her, but he was still his, um, her boyfriend, so to speak.
And that's a real problem. And that's why when President Trump, tried to stop Iran from continuing the war with Israel and Iran, I was on his team 100% for, bombing their nuclear facilities. President
Yes, me
Trump doesn't
too.
hurt people. He doesn't hurt women. His whole administration is mostly women. The bottom line is that President Trump stands up for the US Constitution and free press. And these other countries are allowing this to happen every single day in a new and
Yes,
different way. So we need to
yes,
make that the
yes.
real top of the news.
In a way,
There
the
are
leader,
children.
in a way, the leader of Saudi Arabia must be thinking, why are these Americans making such a big deal out of this? But that's what in my tweet where I wrote Epstein, 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 enough already. Um, that was my point. I said there are much more important things going on in the world, terrorism, wars, and so on, that, to be focusing so much attention on this. And it's just it really is like what's the word? It's like just a sexual a prurient interest that these congressmen have. Now, did you know, let's see, what was his name? There was one congressman today who didn't vote,
Okay.
who voted no. Do you know anything about that? This
Oh,
was
there's so many. Which one are you
GOP
talking about?
Representative Clay Higgins, the only
Okay.
no vote on releasing the Epstein files.
Yeah, so Clay Higgins is the great congressman. He's super cool, super nice, very transparent, and he just doesn't want to get into it because he knows what we know. He knows that, the real files have been disappeared. I mean, this has been going on for how many years? 10 plus years. The real information has disappeared. And so he voted no. And, I appreciate that. Marjorie Taylor Greene is in a lot of hot water with President Trump right now, which is going to be very interesting because her boyfriend is the #1 correspondent at the White House. So maybe that'll make way for people like me who really stand up for President Trump to be
Uh-huh.
a little bit more open door by President Trump to let me ask him more important questions because I care about the real America First problems were happening. I care about our economy. I care about what's going on with the J6 political prisoners. I care about the activist
Yes,
judges that are
yes,
stopping
yes,
President Trump.
yes.
We have so many problems in the United States of America right now. I think it's really important to get on to the next level and really focus on America first.
Right. I totally agree with you. Clay Higgins was from Louisiana, by the way, for those who are interested. We're coming to the end of this segment, but he did a tweet, and he wrote that his main concern was the reveals will injure thousands of innocent people, witnesses, people who provided alibis, family members, etc. If enacted in its current form, this type of broad reveal of criminal investigative files released to a rabid media will absolutely result in innocent people being hurt. And he wrote a lot more, but he made a stand. He wanted to go down in history as voting against it, and I think that's great. Oh, well, all right. When we come back, I wanted to get to something that you were mentioning. Let's see. Oh, about wait. The thing that's oh, yes, will be good. The Thomas um Crooks. Uh,
Yes.
about, how it's coming out that I know you didn't mention Thomas Crooks, but you were mentioning about how a lot of people like in the FBI and so on, there's a lot of deep state in all these institutions. And I think one of the members needs to be fired, and that is Kash Patel. So we can talk about that when we come back.
Okay.
All right, so stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Dr. Carol's Couch. I'm your psychiatrist host, Dr. Carole Lieberman. My guest is Corinne Clifford, and as you've been hearing, not only does she have her her ear to the ground and is talking to a lot of people in DC and actually all over, not just DC. She mentioned Los Angeles and um, well, a lot of different. I'll let her go. I'll let her go over those again. But the thing that I think that is the most important is that it's clear from hearing her speak about these various topics. I mean, of course, we're mainly talking about Jeffrey Epstein and the vote today, but it's clear that she really cares about America, the America First agenda. And I think that that's super important. So, Corinne, you want to mention again all the different places that you were saying that you went to research Jeffrey Epstein?
So I'm in Palm Beach County, Florida right now, and I'm exposing election corruption in Palm Beach County, Florida. The current supervisor of elections here has been involved in electioneering, which is a very simple form of election corruption, but it's very relevant and it affects everyone in Palm Beach County, Florida. But in the midst of that, I have a lot of interactions with the sheriffs and the deputy sheriffs in Palm Beach County. So since last year, I've been able to really talk honestly about what's going on in Palm Beach County, Florida, which is where Jeffrey Epstein was arrested because of President Trump getting involved finally and forcing Jeffrey Epstein to get arrested because he wasn't getting arrested in Los Angeles. He wasn't getting arrested in New York. He wasn't getting arrested in New Mexico. So the bottom line is that I'm based in Washington, D.C. I'm from Beverly Hills, California, but I work across America on very specific topics. And Jeffrey Epstein has been on my radar for years because I spend a lot of time in Palm Beach County exposing election corruption and corrupt elected and selected officials. And so the bottom line is that I think it's really important to bring this all back to America first because our resources are so limited. We are coming into a $38 trillion debt, and that's really what President Trump has to solve is our debt. We cannot function as a country if we go into $38 trillion of debt. And I really think that that's what President Trump has been trying to do today at the White House with the leader of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is now going to be investing $1 trillion into the United States. And I think that it's really important for everyone listening and watching to understand that we want manufacturing in the United States of America right now. As a psychiatrist, you know that there's a lot of medications you can't even get right now because they're out, because they're not manufactured in the United States of America. So I want to pull this all around to the America First agenda, which is taking care of our people first, foremost. But of course, I don't want to underestimate Jeffrey Epstein. I don't want to underestimate any of the problems. I just really want to relate it to America first.
Yes, and Trump is doing that by bringing tariffs and a lot of other things like what you were just mentioning. Um, it is pretty crazy. I was just experiencing today. I mean, I've been experiencing for a long time. My house actually was damaged in one of the Malibu fires, the Woolsey fire, and I'm still not back in my house. And so I've been buying, it didn't get burned down totally, but it got covered with soot and ash and very toxic things. So I'm kind of starting from the beginning with I had to throw out a lot of furniture, a lot of everything. You have to throw out, as you probably know, electrical appliances if you've had a fire near your house. But anyway, so all the things I'm looking up things and I'm buying things in different ways. But for example, this morning I was just looking up a lamp, and I asked the guy, "Where does this lamp come from?" China. Now, so many things, not just lamps, but like furniture, you have to check where they're made. They're being made in China. Now, I know that's not the same thing as medication being made in China. You certainly don't want that. But even furniture, or certainly electrical things, I don't trust things made in China because, there have been all kinds of problems with them. So yes, America, and at the same time, there aren't jobs for younger people coming out of college, and Trump is trying to say, we need to have more tradesmen, and not just going to college and then having a career that, I mean, especially an IT career that AI is kind of taking over. But so let's go to Kash Patel and Thomas Matthew Crooks. Have you been looking?
That's a huge topic, okay? That is a huge topic.
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, the bottom line is very simple. I'm going to give Kash Patel 1 year. I'm not going to criticize him. I'm not going to, try to think that I understand what he's doing, because at one point I did consider him, a personal acquaintance, not necessarily a friend, but, I have interviewed him across America, and he and Dan Bongino, really have vowed to make sure that they will solve the crimes. And so I don't want to be too hard on him yet, but a lot of people are really pissed at him right now. And President Trump would even say this, okay? President Trump would say this. A lot of people are really mad at Kash Patel because they feel like he's not acting fast enough, and he is not, investigating what happened to Charlie Kirk, what happened to President Trump. I mean, but I'm not going to go that far yet because I know he's overwhelmed. But I do know that he is not firing enough people at the FBI. And I do know that there is a lot of infighting in the FBI because there's many people in the FBI right now who hate you, who hate me because we're MAGA Trump supporters. I'm also MAHA. I'm MAHA MAGA, which is Make America Healthy Again, which is Secretary Kennedy, and President Trump is MAGA. So, there's a lot of people inside the FBI who definitely need to be fired and have them fired. So I'm not going to go all the way and just, say that Kash Patel should be fired,
Well,
even though a lot of people are asking for that. And Stuart Rhodes, the founder of the Oath Keepers, wants to create a protest in Washington, D.C. to ask that Pam Bondi and Kash Patel be fired because there's still 12 J6ers, including Stuart Rhodes, who have been their sentences have been commuted. They're not in prison, but they haven't received the presidential pardon. And that's just not fair. Enrique Tarrio, the leader of the Proud Boys, got the pardon, but Stuart Rhodes and 6 of the Proud Boys, 6 of the Oath Keepers didn't get the pardon. And so Stuart Rhodes is actively asking that Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, be fired by President Trump. I'm saying I'm willing to give them a year, but how does this relate to Thomas Crooks? I mean, that is a very deep psychological psychological situation that you and I can talk about because it's very deep. And I will give you a little indicator, and I hope you can handle it. And I don't want to go too far because I don't want to be too crazy on your show, but we are getting very high level information. Investigative journalists like myself, I have women across America and some in Canada. I try not to take the phone calls from Canada. Women across America are calling themselves targeted women, and they believe while they've been incarcerated for a DUI or why they've been in prison for some stupid technicality, that they have been implanted with some type of nanobot technology which can control how they feel, and it can make them violent, it can make them calm. And there is research coming out of California that very violent criminals, when they're released on bond or bail, are implanted so they can control their feelings and make them more peaceful and calm. I think Thomas Crooks was manipulated to do what he did, and I think the man who assassinated Charlie Kirk was manipulated to do what he did by the deep, deep, deep state. And I blame it on our deep state. I don't blame it on a foreign country. So how do you feel about that one? You're a very serious psychiatrist when I tell
well,
you about this.
well, that's a very, I mean, are you hearing this just from sort of these random women who were in jail, or sort of a more, someone who might know more?
No, they're very organized women, and I couldn't handle this news story. And I gave it to Alex Jones, and he has been just going wild on it,
Oh,
getting
really?
20 million views, so many views, because these women are called targeted. They call themselves targeted individuals, but these are women, because I only usually talk to women. There's men too who think that while they've been incarcerated for small periods
Well,
of time
I
over
certainly
stupid
wouldn't,
reasons.
I wouldn't say that that's impossible. I mean, it certainly is possible because and if Alex Jones is on this bandwagon too, that kind of gives it even more credibility. But I mean, yes, it's there are the world is going to be getting more and more crazy. I mean, it's already, we have a lot of mental health problems in America, but with AI and being able to make things where it looks like people are saying certain things or doing certain things, and with the chat bots telling people to commit suicide, and now what you're saying, the more AI is really very dangerous and in all these different forms. What I was going to say about Thomas Matthew Crooks is that the fact that that Tucker Carlson, who I don't like anymore because he's very anti-Israel and anti-Semitic, and and had whatever his name is, the man on his show who's like a Nazi basically. So I don't I take what he says with a word of with a grain of salt, but he had this video that I actually tweeted, that someone, he didn't do this, someone gave him a tip of someone else who had done a lot of research online and found all kinds of things that were put online by Thomas Crooks. And what I'm saying with Kash Patel is why did he not find these things? Why was this some random person who was doing searches online? I mean, sometimes he used the telephone number. He used Thomas Crook's telephone number, and one thing led to another, and they have the proof of it online in this video. So I'm saying, how come? Well, either Kash Patel does not know this, didn't go that far, didn't send his people to search that far, or he does know it and he's just not telling. Either way, it's not good.
Well, what they say, Kash Patel always says this, is that he can't talk about active investigations. And so that's how he'd respond to that. He's not legally allowed to talk about active investigations. And so we really don't know what he knows. And, the FBI press releases are very minimal. So I would like to have better press releases from the FBI. But he and Dan Bongino have been very serious about the fact that they are investigating so many things that they can't talk about. And so that's what he would say. So obviously they could leak it, but that's also illegal. I think that the real truth is that he's not at liberty to talk about what he's investigating.
But in some interviews that I read, he is saying he's saying that he put so many people, a certain number of people, like a large number of people, on the trail of Thomas Crooks. And he did, or his people did, lots of interviews. I forget the numbers, but impressive numbers. And they didn't come up with this thing. I mean, it seemed like he was saying that these things weren't true. Now, Tucker Carlson, for all his faults, and I was on his show, like I'm just so disappointed how he's changed, sort of, it seems like overnight, but maybe not overnight. Maybe he was deep down for a long time against Israel and against Jews. I'd hate to think that, but I actually just came back from Israel. I was in Israel volunteering, helping people with trauma. Um, the citizens and the IDF,
Oh,
hostages, and all that. It was amazing.
that's
Um,
huge.
so
That's huge. Okay.
now I know we don't have very much time left. Let's use the time. You've talked about so many great things. Let's just use the time that's left for talking about your your company, or the company that you are the spokesperson for. That's SAT 123. Is that how you say it? SAT 123 or
Yeah,
SAT
so
123?
SAT 123,
Ah, look at that.
SAT
Just happens
123.
to have.
This is what I have.
Yeah.
Everywhere I go, I always make sure that I have my satellite phone from SAT 123 because I am a very serious journalist and anything can happen. Only 10% of the whole entire world has cell towers. So even if you're on a boat like I was yesterday, or if you're at a ranch in Texas, or if you're traveling internationally, you want to use the satellite phone and you want to go to sat123.com because you want the best customer service. And listen, I got stuck in the Pacific Palisades fires. Emergencies happen. I could get stuck. Anything could happen at the White House. Anything could happen at any time. So I always make sure that I have my satellite phone ready. I always have my bulletproof backpack. I always have my Faraday bags. Then you're going to want the Starlink, especially where you are in California, in case the internet doesn't work. And then you're going to want to make sure that you have emergency gear like a generator, a solar powered generator. I want people to be ready for any emergency. But the bottom line is that once you start using the satellite phone, you get addicted to it because you don't get the crank phone calls. You don't get fake text messages. You don't get anyone trying to bother you or sell you stuff. And if your business is all dependent on communication, like myself and like yourself, you're going to want the satellite phone. So everyone, I really want you to go to sat123.com because this is how people like me, independent journalists, survive. We have to have corporations sponsor us. And Sat123 really cares about the truth. And they really care about journalists like me on the front line of history, on boots on the ground, heels on the ground. Everything I've told you, I've investigated myself.
How I don't know if you can actually tell exact prices, but could you give people, like, it seems like that's a wonderful thing, but it seems like it would be super expensive. Could you give us some
No,
kind
it's about
of ballpark?
$90 a month.
How much?
It's about $80 to $90 a month, $80 to $90 a month, and you can get a free phone and you can call and you can text and you can do whatever you want from the telephone, but people are not going to get your number and crank call and text you. And you just go to sat123.com and they have the best customer service. And I think in this day and age, customer service is critical and key. So I promise you, you can roll over the minutes if you don't use them, but you will eventually use them. I got stuck in the Pacific Palisades fires by accident on on January 7th of 2025. And the satellite phone enabled me to call my emergency person and get me out of the fires because I was stupid. I used my press pass to get in the fires and I didn't realize I could get stuck in the fires. So it saved my life just one time this year. That's worth $80, $90 a month. Let me tell you, it's worth it.
That does seem very reasonable. I'll have to have you back on to talk about the fires because I'm sure you've done research into how Governor Newsom and Mayor Bass are at the bottom of all of this. Have you done that research?
Oh, yes.
Okay, that they
Oh
purposely.
my gosh, yes. And I give a lot of information to Spencer Pratt and other people because it's such serious information. And it's time to really make sure that California has new leadership. We need a new governor and we need a new
Absolutely.
mayor and we need Sheriff Villanova to be the next sheriff of Los Angeles County. I'm going to be there in December and maybe I'll meet you in person because
That would
I'm
be
so
great.
sorry that it was hard for me. Yeah, today, because I'm in Palm Beach, but you are incredible. And I love psychiatrists and I just respect what you do so much.
Well, thank you. And I respect what you do. You obviously do a lot of research. You're not just spouting these things. Well, thank you
Yeah,
again.
I do a lot of research. I interview hundreds of people a week, Dr. Carole.
That's that's more than a psychiatrist does. So again, Corinne
Yes.
Clifford, thank you so much. And again, the company is sat123.com, and it certainly is worth looking into. So thank you. And thank you all for listening. You've been listening to Dr. Carole's Couch, and we'll be back next week.